of a good increases, there are generally more suppliers willing to provide it. Yeah? Hence, higher quantities making the supply curve positive. Okay, so the idea here is look at the red line here. As the price goes up, the amount supplied goes up. Look, at $2.50, we supply 8 trillion British thermal units of natural gas. If the price goes all the way up to 4, we supply 11.6. So the higher the price, the more we supply, because we're making more profits.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you're selling something, right, you're selling something in a shop, the more the price you can charge, the more you'll sell.
More profit on that.
Yeah, because you want money. What are you selling things for? It's to make a profit. You want money. So if the price is going up, you're willing to supply more.
So hold on, when the prices go up,
Quantity supply goes up.
quantity supply goes up.
Yeah.
Okay.
So look
Let's say
here.
I'm selling
Look at this. Look at gas. If it's $2.50, we sell 8. But at $4, we sell 11.6. Each rise in price means I supply a greater amount because I'm making more money. Why am I selling it? It's to make money. So if you keep raising the price, I'll keep raising the supply.
until like they say, you know what, until the consumer says, you know what, it's a bit too pricey, let me not buy it.
We're coming to that.
Yeah.
That's the next thing, okay?
Okay.
But all we're establishing now, the only thing is that from the perspective of the seller, if you raise the price, I raise my supply because I want to make money. Yeah. If we can charge more for this course, we'll sell more courses. We're very happy to hire more lecturers, hire more rooms to sell more courses. Very happy. What are we doing this for? Are we doing it because we love you? Maybe we do, or we love your money more.
We did, bro. It's been honest. That's cool.
This second one,
Because one of that's it. This is a true story. Imagine how naive I was. Imagine how naive I was. I was working as an accountant in the city. I got to be the head accountant in the city, right? And I got bored. It was boring, right? I had no more challenge left. I've come to the top. What am I going to do now? I'm really, I was bored. So I tried to become a lecturer. And you know, I had this kind of like, you know, I'm going to educate young minds, right? But I was really kind of like, well, this is a great thing to do. I arrived at the job which satisfies me.
how long you are teaching?
I've got that now 15 years.
15, so it's enjoyable now.
Yes, I love it.
not boring.
No, I love it. I love being a lecturer. But listen, so I said I'm going to educate people. It's almost a spiritual job, yes? I'm almost like a mentoring people. You know what the boss says on the first day? And this is one of the most brilliant minds in London. He's a really intelligent man.
Mr. Sexton.
No, it's a different place. It's called Sal Kaplan. You know what he's saying? Quote unquote on the first day, you're going to make a lot of money for us. So I think actually the way he said it, my mind went soft. So I didn't actually, I was there to sort of educate the youth.
Yeah.
Educate the next generation. I kind of feel that way now. We're in this world of business, right? So you've got to adapt to, I've got to give them what they want as well. So I've got to look like, it's got to look like, okay, so many of my students are passing, so they go to the next year and you're making money. See, so,
And this is,
So when for the uni?
yeah. As long as you give me students think I'm happy. I mean, so if they're happy that they pass, that's good too. Okay, so we've got to understand this, right? So now I've explained the demand curve is a negative relationship. The supply curve is a positive relationship. Okay. Now, just as I said, there is movement along the demand curve because of price and movement of the demand curve because of those 5 points I made, a change in fashion, a change in income, and so on, right? Also with supply, there is also a shift along the supply curve because of price. This shift is only to do with price. Yeah, because these prices are changing, the prices are rising, so the supply is rising. That's shift along the supply curve. But a shift of the supply curve is like shifting from S1 to S2, which is an increase in supply. Okay, all right. Then, if supply is increasing in that way, from here to here, then, okay, we want to know, just like we gave you 5 reasons for a shift of the demand curve, we are now going to give you 5 reasons for a shift of the supply curve. So from this lecture, what you've got to get is, why do we have a movement along the demand curve and a movement of the demand curve? And then equally, why do we have a movement along the supply curve, which is due to price, and of the supply curve, which is due to these 5, okay? So you've got to know all of that. Not like last lesson, not where you didn't revise it. Some of you guys didn't even read anything. You've got to do some reading, guys, okay? I'm evidently a good lecturer, they say, but I'm not a miracle worker. I can't make you learn this if you don't try, okay? You've got to try. You've got to read after my lecture. Okay.
What do we have? Demand curve.
Yeah. A shift, a movement along the demand curve and a movement of the demand curve.
All right.
For the 5 reasons I gave. And a movement along the supply curve and a movement of the supply curve for these 5 reasons. Yeah.
ARU's chocolate is better than McDonald's.
I don't try McDonald's. I'll try their chocolate. If it's good, I'll try it sometime. I haven't tried it. Their coffee wasn't great. I'll try their chocolate. You went to the place downstairs?
It's here.
Okay.
Yeah, the 50p.
Yeah, but this is.
It's not like, the very watery. Some McDonald's give you very watery chocolate. This is kind of thick and.
Okay, I'll try this one. Okay. Right. So let's look at these 5 reasons why your supply curve will shift from S1 to S2, for example. The first one, then. Let's look at the first one. Okay, the first one is change in input prices. If your input prices go up, what will happen? It costs you more to make it, right? Let's say your labor costs go up, your material costs go up, right? It costs you more to make it, and therefore you will have to pass the cost onto the customer, right? So it's costing you more to make it because you have to pay. Let's say the minimum wage keeps going up, doesn't it? It was £8.75, now it's £9 something, right? Minimum wage, right? So if the minimum wage has gone up, it means it's cost you more to make each one. So you have to raise the price and pass the cost on to the customer. Is that right? Yeah. So that's the idea. If the price goes up of supply, so that's what we're talking about. So this will be a case of a change in input prices raises the cost, okay? And if you can sell it for more, you might be inclined to supply more. That's one of the reasons why you'll have a shift of the supply curve. If this is all on page, I should actually read to the book today, because I haven't said something about the book, which is not great. Okay, this is all on page. It starts on page 77, right? So change in input prices. To produce output, you need inputs, right? So let's say in the example they give you, let's say you're making vanilla ice cream, right? You need beans and cream and sugar, right? An increase in the price of an input makes production more costly for those who sell it. So producers are less willing to supply the final good at any given price, and the supply curve moves to the
Which page is this, please?
77. So if input prices go down, we're more inclined to supply because we make more profit. If input prices go up, what are we going to do? Either we can pass it on to the customer, but assuming we can't do that, okay, what we're going to do is if input prices go up, it's going to cost us more to make it, okay, and we're less inclined to supply. Okay? So you get that idea. Prices go down, we're more inclined to, because we make more profit, we're more inclined to supply. Prices go up, we're less inclined to supply because we get less cut. And of course, there are many other things that can be done. Like I said earlier, you can pass it on to the customer. That's a very common thing to do. That's a separate thing. But you get that idea? Are you with me?
Yes.
Okay.
So, can you mention that again, please?
Yes. If your input prices, let's say in this case ice cream, vanilla beans, and sugar and all that, if it goes up, then I'm going to make less money.
Well, as a business owner.
Yeah,
Seller,
if I'm a seller of ice cream, but the cost of the beans goes up, then what that means is that I'm less inclined to supply it at that price. Because my costs are up, so my profits are down. So I don't want to supply it anymore. If you say, okay, I'm going to sell one cone of vanilla ice cream for £2, but now suddenly my costs have gone up, then I'm less inclined to supply at £2 because the cost has gone up, my profit gone down. The cost for me to make the ice cream has gone up,
Yeah.
so I'm going to make less profit. Yes. Okay, another one is change of prices in related goods or services. Let's say an oil refinery produces gasoline and crude oil, two things. If a producer sells several products, the quantity of any one good it is willing to supply at any given price depends on the prices of its other co-produced goods. So what we're saying is one person is supplying many goods, okay? Let's say you're supplying good one and good two, right? These are goods that are kind of like two goods that you're supplying, related goods. If the price of one goes up, you want to supply more of that because you're selling it, right?
What if you increase the price but it doesn't sell?
No, that's not the model. The model is this. I've got these two goods, A and B. They're related goods. Let's say oil and gas. I sell oil and gas. The price of oil is going up. That's the one I want to supply. Because I make more money. That's the idea. Yeah.
Simple as that.
Simple as that. Yeah. That's all. Because you're a businessman. You want to make money. What are you in business for? You're a money maker. So here's two goods. Suddenly this one gone up. Okay, that's the one I want to sell. I make more money.
So you can hold your gasoline part up, then it goes up.
That's all the strategies are possible, but we're talking about the general rule.
So when you mean when like the oil goes up instead of the gas
In price, yeah.
in price, do you mean like
But you're selling a good
value? So
the price you're selling it for.
price you set or the value of it?
No, value. The price you're selling
Price
it
you
for.
set, okay.
So say that you have good A and good B, the price of good A goes up, then you want that one you want to sell. You can make more money from that one. I'll sell less of this and more of that. So their example here, okay, is an oil refiner will supply less gasoline when the price of heating oil rises, shifting the supply curve to the left. So it will supply more gasoline when the price is up, you know? So in other words, anyone will do that. If you're supplying gasoline and oil, right, these two, and gasoline is up, you'll supply more of that. You're in the business for money. Okay, so that's another one. That's another thing that will cause. Now, changes in technology. Let's say that you're digging the ground, right? Planting vegetables, so they'll grow. But suddenly, technology changes and you bought a tractor. So suddenly you can do much more work that will increase the supply. With one tractor, your supply will go enormously. Because you've got one machine, so what probably 15 men used to do. 50 men used to plow a field, one machine can do it in 1 hour. Right? So, yeah, it's very efficient. And so it means that one machine will increase your supply. So improvement in technology will increase supply. For example, look at me. I've never done online lecturing until lockdown. When the lockdown, we were shocked, we lecturers were shocked. I was actually in the University of West London. We didn't have a clue how to do this. The lockdown, we had one meeting, and then they said, okay, go to your house and you get the lecture. So I was like calling my colleague, okay, now how do you share the PowerPoint? He said, like that. It was really funny. But now look at the change in technology. I can give this lecture. Last year, one of my students, he said, okay, I'm going to Ghana. He said, okay, have a nice holiday. And he said, and then as I saw his face on the screen, I said, oh, you're going to Ghana. He said, I am in Ghana. I'm in Accra. So, you know, imagine the technology now. I can teach people all over the world from my desk. So this means I can teach hundreds of people a course.
Right.
Yeah. So I think that's the future of education. Why should people come to this country, come to horrible London, very bad, you know, like very expensive, very hard place to live. I was a student in London, very hard place to live, very bad accommodation, very expensive, horrible landlords. You know, if I can stay in your country, I was born in this country, so that's how this move on. If you can stay in your country and do this degree, okay, Wouldn't that be easy? So I think that's going to be the future. But okay, improvement of technology means an improvement in supply. Yeah? Change in expectations. This is more challenging. Let's say, okay, you are selling. Let me give you a good example. What will be topic? Food first. That's a very good idea. Now, this war in Russia is affecting food prices because Russia is a major supplier of wheat and also the phosphates that you use as fertilizer. Okay, so let's say you expect food prices to go up. Right? We expect food prices to go up and up and up. So I, as a supplier, want my supply to go up and up and up because I can make money. Right? In fact, food prices already are going up. Go to the supermarket and see what's happening. One milk, the one bottle I used to buy, the creamy kind of like Devon milk, the nice one, okay? I paid one for it, and now I pay $1.30 for it. How did that happen? What's milk got to do with Russian war?
I paid in Tesco's the other week, I paid what? £40. Oh, from a single shop, I live with my aunt, so before it would be cost like maybe 30 something.
That's it. So, okay, if you're a supplier, what will you do? Price of food going up, and you're a food supplier, you increase your supply. I want money. So, if I expect prices to go up, I'm ready to supply more. Yep. Okay, and changes in numbers of producers. More producers, more supply. Simple. If let's say, I tell you one producer, this university course is in London. We have so many universities in this building. We have this one, we have the University of Scotland somewhere. On another floor, University of Northampton.
Oh, you see?
It's on,
It's the same building.
Yeah.
Northampton University.
it's on 6th floor. I'm going to be teaching there because these people own it. Come on, you see, they both own the same one. This one and that Northampton is both about the same owner.
This one, own that one as well.
Yes.
Two universities.
Yes. And
How
I'm
do you
teaching,
call it?
starting right now.
Okay.
I'm having a meeting after.
You are lecturer.
Yes. I'm teaching this course there.
Okay.
So, I met a lady this morning. I met a lady who I used to work with this morning. And she's studying at a different university in the same building.
Yeah. There's a few universities. There's this one, and I think West London, Scotland or something like that, is on the floor. And then there's some global banking college or something like that. So,
Something weird.
yeah. There's an idea.
I saw one guy when I know him, I worked with him, and he said, where we used to live, and I said, there is on I asked him, yeah, it's the same building.
This is the idea.
In the past, it wasn't like that. In the past, it's like each university have their own building and campuses.
Yeah, but what's happened, that's what I'm saying. What has happened is this. It's that basically, people see a fast track, right? There's a lot of money in education now, right? So that the number of producers have increased, so the supply has increased because people can see money is in there. That's all it is. And the guy who owns this is an Indian business. He doesn't care about education, he's got money. Okay, so these are the 5 reasons for an increase or decrease, a shift in supply, in other words, yes? So you've got to know this. You've got to know if supply goes from S1 to S2 or it decreases from S1 to S3. These are the 5 reasons, and you've got to understand it from page 77 and 78. If there's something that wasn't clear, you've got to read it up, okay? You have to understand this.
See, this number 4, change in expectation. You mean that one?
Which one?
Number 4.
Number 4, change in expectation. If you expect, I have a supplier, I think food prices are going up. I'm ready to supply more.
All right.
I want money. I want money back up.
So we should read only 77 to 78.
No. You should read the whole slide back, and when you don't understand something, look in here.
Okay.
Because you've been listening to me for 3 hours. Not every one of this is going to go in. No matter how many times I explain it, there's a lot of information. I am a student, by the way. If I go to a lecture, I get about 60% of the lecture. I don't get 100%, right? I don't get 100% of the lecture. because my brain is only a human brain. It's not a computer, right? So I had to go and read afterwards what I didn't understand. I received a lecture last night, yesterday. I was just a student. This morning, I read it back to revise it. There was 1 or 2 points I didn't get clear. You know, so I'm going to go back to the teacher next week. You know, I'm just saying, even if I'm an experienced student, right, I still don't understand everything in a lecture. I have to read again afterwards. Okay, so like I explained these five, I'm sure you got the general idea, and I'm sure you got most of them. There might be one you don't understand. Go and read in the book. The book is a very nice textbook. It's an actual economics textbook you can actually understand. Okay, let's go on. I've got 10 slides and I haven't got much time left. So we're saying movement along the supply curve is due to price, and movement, a shift of the supply curve is due to these five. So okay, if you have this, a shift of along the supply curve, if the price goes up, the supply goes up. That's along the supply curve, and a shift of the supply going from S1 to S2. This is for these 5 reasons.
So what it means, supply, go back to the slide. So there's a shift along the supply curve.
Yep,
There's a shift of the supply curve.
Long is like this,
Yeah.
and that's just to do with price.
Mm-hmm.
If the whole supply curve goes from S1 to S2,
Yeah.
it's for these 5 reasons.
So one arrow and another arrow.
But that doesn't mean it's always, it's going to be either, it could be either negative or positive.
Yes, increase or decrease. We don't shift one way or the other.
So what? Shift on the other side is like it's
It's still a shift, it's a decrease.
a decrease, but the shift
Here, look,
towards to the
this is an increase from S1 to S2, or it can be a decrease from S1 to S2.
Yeah, I don't understand this shift of supply because
Yeah, it's for these reasons, what I just said. If, let's say, for example, the number of producers increases, the supply will increase. It will go from S1 to S2. We had 10 suppliers, now we've got 20.
and that's the positive side.
Yeah, or if the suppliers decrease, we'll go from S1 to S3.
And this is the negative.
Yeah.
oh,
Well, just the example I gave, there's at least, I started 15 years ago, there's at least twice as many universities in London. Supplying at least twice as many business courses. So the supply has gone up, right?
more producers, more supply.
Yeah, because, you know, like there was no University of West London, there was no Anglia Ruskin University London, there was no University of Northampton, London, there just wasn't this many universities. But people see what fast buck they can make. That's what it is. They're business.
Business.
We've been in the teaching industry for a long time. So in the past, I know that like when it comes to employment, employers normally look at like they sometimes decide whether you came from a good university or not. Doesn't seem to happen these days. Like we would just say like now, I was just comparing that Northampton University is 1,000 out of 1,500 worldwide, but ARU, for example, is around 300 and
Yeah, that's because it's been around a while, and it's supposed to be in England in the top 40.
yeah. So my question is like employers these days, do they still look at that in that
They
way?
would want people to get a degree from a university that at least they've heard of. They would at least have heard of it, right? So university, when I tell people I lecture at the University of Anglia Ruskin University, London, they know it. So yeah, even if it's got a pretty fair reputation, it seems true. I mean, it's not bad in terms of organisation, it's not bad. You know, it's not bad as a university.
But I think this university is a very good university because the way you guys deliver the information.
I would say depends on the lecturer though. I know
Yeah.
I like the way he teach.
Yeah.
He relates it into the actual things that we would understand.
Yeah.
But
True.
there are others that
You know,
Yeah.
when I did a course in finance, you know, let's say I had 6 teachers. 1 or 2 were very good, the other one was bad, and the other ones were in the middle. I mean, if you have 6 lecturers on a course, you'll get 1 or 2 good ones, you'll get 1 or 2 mediocre ones. That's normal. I wouldn't let that kind of trouble you. just carry on with what you're doing, you know.
What I see now, we hear in the economic of business, we have like recording, but then business management, we don't have.
There's none. I was trying to look for it because I'm hoping that I get
Same.
the other tutor doing that so I can watch that and maybe I will be able to understand it from the other.
But business finance is very simple, of course.
If it's explained properly.
When you need to be careful. If you don't understand one thing, you lose it everything. For this reason, we need.
I taught it myself. You know. You can ask me if there's something you don't understand. Ask me, you know. As long as it's not your assignment.
Yeah.
I'll get into trouble. Okay, let's go on. Let's go on.
All right, go on.
Okay, so we've done that one. Yep. Hang on now. I don't really have time for this. Okay, let me leave this. Let's leave this one. We won't do this one today. Okay. Now,
Equilibrium.
this is the issue. Now we come to the conclusion, right? So this is, we've done the demand curve, we've done the supply curve, okay? And now we're going to do equilibrium, the whole point. Can you see this diagram?
Yep.
Equilibrium. This and this balance, right? That's what we're talking about. When the demand and supply balance, the competitive market is said to be in equilibrium when the price of a good or service is at a level when the quantity demanded equals the quantity supplied. You set a price to sell the good where the number of people who want to buy equals the number of people who want to supply. Yeah? So let's say there are, a price of an ice cream is £2. The supplier wants to sell 100 and the people want to buy 100 at £2. Yes, that's the idea here. So you set a price where the demand of the person buying equals the demand of the person selling.
So that's an efficient market, is it? I mean, it's efficient, like,
Yeah,
like
that's
it's
a-
producing enough to supply the people that actually wants it.
Yeah. But what I would do is, if you're going to memorize anything, memorize this. Competitive market is said to be in equilibrium when the price of a good or service is at a level when the quantity, this is the thing we need. It's a level at when the quantity demanded equals the quantity supplied. That's what equilibrium is. The quantity demanded is equal to the quantity supplied. That's the important part of the definition.
Equality.
Look, equilibrium is a level when the quantity demanded equals the quantity supplied. I've highlighted it there. That's the important conclusion of the lecture. I've got a few more slides to teach, but that's the important conclusion. Okay, let's carry on. Let's look at this then. Here is equilibrium. There's the price, and at that price, the quantity demanded and the quantity supplied is the same, right? We've set the price at, let's say, $2.50, and then the quantity demanded and supplied is 3. So where the lines cross, the supply and the demand cross, that's the equilibrium point. Because at that price, the demand and supply equal each other. That's the quantity demanded.
But the quantity says it's about what, 3.12? The price is about 2.5,
5 maybe, 4,
2.4.
maybe something like that.
That's not 100%. That's slightly,
Yeah, look, it's
the quantity is slightly larger than the price though.
the quantity's got nothing, but that doesn't, you can have a price of 2.4 and a quantity of 50, it doesn't matter. It's just that this doesn't matter. It means that at that price, this is the demand and supply.
For the idea, there's no big gap, like it meets like that.
Yeah, it's just that you've set a price, and at that price there, the number supplied and the number demanded are the same. about 3.1. So that's in equilibrium. That's what we're looking for. Equilibrium price for pizza is that if I charge £2, that's for 40, I'm going to get 3.2 pizzas sold. Yep, so that's the conclusion. Where the demand curve and supply curve cross each other, that's the equilibrium price.
And that this, in this chart, it's healthy market. Like it,
Competitive market, yes.
competitive market.
Good. Yeah. Okay, so you got that. You are with that. That's the important conclusion of the lecture. Why are you yawning? Really?
Okay.
Why are you yawning? You don't enjoy my lecture? I'm killing myself teaching you and you're yawning.
Sorry. No, when they say when people yawn, it's not because they're bored, it's because they're focused. Honestly. So I got told.
Okay. All right. So we get this. Let me just carry on because I don't want to. A few slides in a few minutes. Okay, because we're ready to the conclusion here. Now, so let me go back one. And let me go back. So that's the equilibrium price, 240, and the equilibrium quantity is about 3.1 or 2, something like that. Okay. So here, equilibrium price. This is the price when a competitive market reaches equilibrium for a good or service. Right? So there's a price which will mean you will reach equilibrium where the demand and supply cross. Okay? And that's also the market clearing price. Why is it called the market clearing price? Because that's the price you sell at. You sell at it.
That's good for you.
Yeah, that's what you want.
The more stuff you repeat it again.
Yeah, great stuff. So it's great to do that. Okay. And the equilibrium quantity is the quantity of goods or services bought at the equilibrium price. Let's go back one. Here's the equilibrium price. So at that price I sell out because supply and demand equal each other, and that's the quantity at that price that I sell. Okay, good. So we're all getting it?
Is it, because they say it's supply and demand, right? But isn't it better when the consumer demands the product or service, and then you then supply it to them to better? For the market to demanding supply, or
Okay, that's okay.
What I'm trying to do is so what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to say this is a competitive market. Nobody is selling anything. It's just that here's a whole bunch of buyers and here's a whole bunch of sellers, and through their dynamic, what we're going to get is we're going to get this. All these sellers and all these buyers are going to come to an equilibrium. So it just means there's many buyers and sellers. Nobody can control the market, right? But what can control the market is these forces. These forces are the interaction of demand and supply. That's what determines everything. I'm going to teach you other models where it doesn't work like this, which is where you have monopolies and stuff. That's succeeding, not today. But that's the norm today. Okay. Okay, and one other thing I want to say, okay, what happens then if, let's go here, this is the best way to do this. Let's say I don't have that price. I say, okay, here's the demand, here's the supply, here's the equilibrium point. At $3, I sell, the equilibrium quantity sold is 10. What if I don't sell at 3? Let's say I sell at 350, what will happen?
more sales.
So what will happen at 350 is the supply will go up. Why is the supply going up? Because if you raise the price, people will sell more. You get that idea? Because the supplier wants to make profit. So if you say, okay, you can make 50 cents more, so his supply will go from 10. At $3, he wants to supply 10. But at 350, he wants to supply 11.2 because he's making more money. How about demand though? We said with demand, if price goes up, demand goes down. At 350, demand goes down from 10 to 8.1. So in other words, if you raise the price above the equilibrium, what happens? My supply goes up, my demand goes down, therefore I have a surplus, right? Because at a higher price, people want to sell more, but then people want to buy less. So if I raise the price above the equilibrium price here, I will have more sellers than buyers, I will end up with a surplus.
Surplus and the extra.
extra or that extra left over. Yeah, because the price has gone up, so the supplier wants to sell more, but the buyer wants to buy less. So I'm going to have extra left over. Try it with this course. The 9,500, we've got somebody raise it to 12 or 13,000. You'll see that the people takers will go down. Definitely that will work.
I got a friend that was studying here, business management, but he told me that he stopped the course obviously because of the cost. Now he's studying electrician.
Electrician.
Yeah.
Let's say not everybody want to do this kind of course. I think it's a great course, but some people want to be an electrician. I've got my friend's son. He's a very bright kid. You know, I've known him since he was a baby almost, right? But he wanted to do things like plumbing courses, things like he's a practical man. Yeah? He doesn't want to sit down and, you know, even in my family, there are kids, they don't want to sit down and do this kind of course. I do, right? I did want to study, but I still sound a student. I'm very passionate about this. But not every kid wants that. Some of them want to do practical things. So some people, even, to be honest with you, when I look at my working life, sitting down behind a computer is very boring. Lecturing people and talking, sharing ideas, I find interesting. Okay, so you got that. If we raise the price above the equilibrium, we have more supply and less demand, so we'll have extra stuff left over, called a surplus.
Surplus, yeah.
Here's the other way. Let's say we lower the price below the equilibrium of 3. What will happen then? If you lower the price, well, we said demand goes up, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Lower the price, the higher the demand. What about supply? Say you're selling, they've lowered the price. I don't want to sell that many anymore. I'm not so interested anymore because I'm making less profit. I'm in this making money. If you lower the price, I don't want to sell them anymore. Okay, so
If you lower the price, sorry to cut you off. If you lower the price, you gain more sales.
No, by stocking from the suppliers.
No, we're not saying that. We're saying if you lower the price, the seller, right? The seller will want to sell less, but the buyer will want to buy more.
Okay.
So at a lower price, let's say you lower the price something. What did you lower yesterday? And I'll tell you what I did. Honey. One honey was 4. I buy very natural honey, £4. They lowered it to 3.10 or something like this. So I bought 3 of them. Yeah, you lower the price, I want more.
Yeah.
So okay, so at the lower price, I will demand more. But the supplier, at the lower, the law of supply is lower the price, the lower the supply, amount supply, and the higher the price, the higher the amount supply. So here we're going to have a shortage because people will demand more because the price is low, the supplier will supply less. So this is the opposite of this. Wait, this is the opposite of this. This was if you raise the price, there'll be extra left over because supply will be higher and demand will be lower. This is the opposite. If you actually lower the price, the demand will go up and the supply will go down. Therefore, you will have a shortage. You'll have more demand than supply at a low price.
Why would the supply go down?
This law, the law is, if the law of supply is, if the price goes up, the supply goes up.
If the what, sorry?
If the price goes up, the supplier supplies more because he wants to make more money.
Supply, not you, the seller, but
The
the customer supplying you.
seller is the supplier.
Oh, okay, that's right.
Seller and supplier is the same thing.
Yeah.
So in other words, if the price goes up, the supplier who's selling will sell more. If the price goes down, the supplier who's selling he will sell less. He won't make money as much. You get that idea? So the law is this: raise the price, the supply will go up. Lower the price, the supply will go down. Okay, so that's the law of it all. Okay, so what we're going to do?
Sorry, the more expensive the product, the more the supplier would want to sell, right?
Yes, because he makes more money.
The less expensive the product, the less he would want to sell.
Yes, he makes less money.
Because the price of the product is less, right?
Yes, so he'll make less money.
Yeah. Right.
Okay.
This is very simple stuff.
Yeah. Because if you get the camera, if you follow this, it's very logical method built from beginning to end. Yeah. But you've got to read it back, right?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So that's it then. So what we've got to do here is we've got to look at supply and demand in competitive markets. It means that you're going to look at all I told you about demand, movement along the demand curve because of price, and movement off the demand curve because of the 5 reasons, like increase in income, change in fashions and so on, all those kind of things. Equally, for supply, we looked at movement along the supply curve because of price, and then movement of the supply curve because of the things you said. If there's more suppliers, more people selling, there'll be more supply. You know, if there is a situation where you have a change in technology, better supply. Change in expectations, if we expect prices to go up, we increase the supply. Yeah? Okay. So we've got to know all about demand and supply and then the equilibrium, right? And then you can finish with, what if we don't sell at the equilibrium price but higher? We'll have a surplus. How about lower? We'll have a shortage. And that's it. That's what you've got to know, okay?
The more customers you get, the more you will supply, right? No?
Yes.
The more buyers, the more you will increase the supply.
Yes, it depends on the supply, it depends on price.
Price.
The whole thing's on price. If the price goes up,
So,
then I will supply more. Yeah, some.
yeah.
Supply some. Yeah, that's right. So
price goes up, so more. Price goes down, so less.
yes,
Alright.
this model. Because if the price is going up, my supply is going upwards. Yep. If the price is going down, my supply is going downwards.
So if your price goes down, you sell less. How do you then get rid of the surplus? Or the social
The model is like this. If let's say the price is up, I'll get my people to make more stuff so I can sell more.
Yeah.
If the price goes down, I'll say, don't worry, we need to reach this month. So we'll sell less.
So what do you do with the product? What's that?
You don't make it. You don't make it, you don't sell it.
That's a loss, then, isn't it?
No, you don't use your resources to make it. So it means that your resources still there.
True.
Depending when you are going to make it.
But how do you get rid of, like, let's say it's like a box of oranges?
You haven't made it. You haven't made
You
it.
haven't planted the orange yet. It's still a seed.
No, but let's say if I buy boxes stacked up, and I sell them at a grocery store, let's say when the price goes down.
But you're talking about from the super store point of view. Yes, of course they're gonna sell that.
Yeah.
Because they will put that obviously maybe on a promotion to get rid of it,
Yeah.
discounting. But it's talking from the main supplier that produces.
Oh, okay.
Produces a bigger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I thought you said the supplier was the person who's selling it, right?
Yeah.
When you said supplier, I was thinking it's like the person who would get the products off, rather than us ourselves being the supplier.
Well, we as the customer do get the products from the supplier. Yes, he's selling. We can buy from the supplier. It depends. See, the supplier sells, the customer buys.
Of course, yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay. Just keep it simple, innit?
Yeah, keep it simple. You notice whenever I talk about this, I always keep it simple. I give you simple examples. Yeah, so that everybody understands. Okay, so you've got to learn this lecture, okay? Because this one, I think, is going to follow you a long way, okay? So this is a great subject to learn, and this is a very important lecture in economics. Very important. Let me talk to the people at home. Anybody at home got anything to ask? We all get that at home. May I encourage you people at home to come to the lesson? You'll get much more if you come to the lesson, guys. Yes. I don't bite, you know, I'm quite friendly, and you might even get a few jokes out of me. Yeah?
Yes.
Please come to the lecture. It's much better for you instead of sitting at home and complaining that you can't hear anything. Come to the lesson. You might meet your life partner in the lesson. The love of your life might be here. Yes?
Thank you. Yeah.
In this country, very handsome boys and very peaceful girls.
We're talking about here that the supplier put that.
Okay, does anybody have any questions at home? Okay, please do some revision.
No, he's talking about.
Please do some revision, guys, okay? Very important that we learn this. I can't teach you this if you don't learn, okay?
Remember that.
This lecture back, okay? So I will see you on Tuesday, and we'll have lecture 4.
Sorry.
We'll have lecture 4 on Tuesday, and I will see you then. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you.
Have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you.
It's better if the next class we change of class of room. Because today sometimes it's a lot problem with the noise or with the sound there. I don't know. Thank you very much.
Maybe one on the sample. Okay, I'll see you next week, guys, okay?
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you, man.
Okay, okay.
Thank you. See you, Jeffrey.